Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategic Labs, the channel where we deeply analyze the ideas, narratives, and strategies behind the documents. Today, we are going to dive into the material we have on the table. Before we start, please leave a like, share the episode, subscribe to the channel, and remember to check the description for the links to access the original material. All right, let's jump right into this, because today's explainer centers on a seriously provocative thesis drawn from Edward H. Whitmore's Shadow Intelligence series. Specifically, we're looking exclusively at Chapter 2, the internal structure of the Holy See. And the core argument we are deconstructing today is, well, it's pretty mind-blowing. The premise is that the Vatican isn't just a spiritual epicenter, it is actually a highly compartmentalized, incredibly sophisticated intelligence machine.
Just set the stage for a second here. Whenever we analyze traditional global powers, what do we look at? We look at their military bases, their defense budgets, their spy satellites, right? Well, the Vatican has literally none of that. I mean, we are talking about the smallest independent state in the world by area, and yet it operates as a massive global power without a single standing army. How? Because, as this text critically points out, they leverage something way more pervasive than force: presence. They project power and gather intelligence through this vast architecture built entirely on observation, human relationships, and a culture of deep, deep embedding. So this brings us to a really fascinating debate. Can an institution genuinely be both a spiritual center and a calculated intelligence machine at the same time? The material we're analyzing argues that these two things are inextricably linked. But to truly understand how this invisible influence operates, we have to do an anatomical breakdown of this machine. And to do that, we got to start right at the very top of the hierarchy.
Section 1. The ultimate node, the papal office. Sitting right at the apex of this structure is the Pope. But structurally speaking, he isn't just a spiritual head. He is the supreme intelligence arbiter. Think about this from a purely strategic perspective for a minute. Because of papal primacy, the Vatican possesses an absolutely unrivaled centralized hub for information processing. There are no fragmented, competing executive branches here, like you might see in a secular democracy. Instead, you have one ultimate node synthesizing incredibly complex streams of global data, diplomatic cables, cultural shifts, socioeconomic reports, and translating all that raw data into direct strategic influence. The source material actually frames this perfectly. It states, and I quote, "The Pope is far more than a religious figurehead. He is the decisive node." Just think about the gravity of that framing. Every single piece of sensitive intelligence that makes it to his desk has been meticulously filtered. And he has to look at it through this really unique dual lens: geopolitical pragmatism on one hand, and these long-term spiritual aims on the other. It's a style of governance that leverages centuries of established norms to make decisions that literally ripple across the globe.
But you gotta wonder, how does all that data actually reach him? The text highlights this brilliant contrast. On one side, you have the formal, official diplomatic channels, right? The polished reports from the curia and the nuncios. But on the other side, and this is where it gets really fascinating, you have the raw, informal grassroots intelligence. I'm talking about parish priests and bishops embedded in distant villages and urban centers all over the world. They essentially act as local sensors, gathering this real-time, on-the-ground intelligence about social unrest or political shifts that traditional state spies could literally never access. And wrapping all of this up is a culture of just meticulous secrecy. The Pope's inner circle is incredibly small, leaks are super rare, and their institutional memory is fiercely protected. Like, the Vatican's secret archives aren't just dusty basements full of old books. They are strategic reservoirs. Decisions are informed by centuries of historical correspondence and past intelligence. This gives the papal office a temporal depth that modern, four-year cycle intelligence agencies just don't have. They think in centuries, guys, not news cycles. Section 2. The nerve center, the Roman Curia.
Okay, so if the Pope is the ultimate node, what's the processing engine? That would be the Roman Curia. And these folks aren't just administrators, they are highly specialized intelligence analysts. The core executive hub within this bureaucracy is the Secretariat of State. The text breaks this down into two main sections: General Affairs, which handles the internal governance and communication flow, and Relations with States, which basically acts like a foreign ministry. Together, they orchestrate diplomatic engagement and manage a network that uses cultural ties to gather insights that traditional states just can't touch.
But it goes even deeper. Take the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Historically, they're known for guarding theology. But in practice, they function as a critical internal intelligence unit. Think of it like global sentiment analysis. By tracking ideological shifts and cultural transformations across the globe, they act as an internal security and early warning system. They sense shifts in belief that signal broader political or social upheavals long before they actually happen on the ground.
Then, further out on the edges, you find the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. Why does this matter for our analysis? Well, because they oversee missionary territories, which are often the most politically volatile, fragile regions on Earth. So this group is gathering crucial soft intelligence from geopolitical hotspots that are usually completely impenetrable or just ignored by traditional state intelligence agencies. And of course, you always have to follow the money, right? The administration of the Patrimony of the Apostolic See manages the Vatican's assets, acting as this massive financial intelligence node. They're tracking global capital flows, monitoring corruption risks, and figuring out the financial leverage points that prop up complex international networks of influence. Beyond those major departments, you have these really unconventional nodes. The Congregation for the Clergy pulls intel straight from the church hierarchy. The Council for Justice and Peace engages heavily with human rights NGOs. And even the papal household and the almoner, who handle gifts and aid, serve as these informal conduits for intelligence that might never make it into an official diplomatic cable. It basically forms a shadow web of information, bypassing standard protocols entirely. So the absolutely crucial point here is how this is all managed without falling apart. The text says, within the Curia, information flows are tightly controlled, compartmentalized, and encrypted. This isn't just about dodging scandal. This encryption and extreme discipline are exactly what prevent internal factionalism and preserve the Vatican's neutral diplomatic posture. Think about it. If their intelligence leaked, their legitimacy as a neutral global mediator would just completely collapse. Section 3, the arteries, information channels. Now that we've got the anatomy down, let's look at how data actually moves through the arteries of this machine. It happens in a very precise sequence. Step 1, grassroots observation. Let's say a local priest notices a shift in political sentiment in his community. Step 2, curial filtering. That observation moves up to a nuncio, then hits the Secretariat of State, where it's cross-referenced with historical and diplomatic data. Step 3, papal decision. The fully distilled, contextualized intelligence finally reaches the Pope to inform a strategic move, or maybe a public encyclical. But here's the real genius of the system. It can adapt super fast. When urgency demands it, direct channels bypass that entire bureaucracy completely. Actually, scratch that. It's more like they have built-in fast lanes. Informal back channels and private consultations with trusted cardinals allow the Vatican to pivot instantly from rigorous bureaucratic filtering to rapid, agile communication to address an immediate crisis. Despite that agility, though, the overriding philosophy is always measured consultation. Let's debate this point because it's absolutely vital. The Vatican favors long-term theological and strategic planning over reactive, knee-jerk political posturing. Their entire intelligence system is designed to shape outcomes through steady, patient calculation, ensuring that every single move aligns with a broader, overarching objective. Which brings us to the definitive message from this source material. How exactly does a non-military power quietly shape global history? It happens through the absolute mastery of structure. By blending spiritual legitimacy with an incredibly layered, patient, and globally embedded intelligence system, the Vatican turns simple observation into quiet, enduring strength. It really is an intelligence of restraint, of historical memory, and of just unparalleled presence. A system that proves information and influence can be way more potent than standing armies. Which leaves us with one final thought. If an institution without a single soldier can wield this much global influence simply by listening, what does that actually say about the true nature of power in our modern world? We've reached the end of this analysis. If this episode added value to your day, please leave a like, share it, and subscribe to Strategic Lab so we can keep deconstructing narratives. Remember to check the video description. See you in the next analysis.